Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan. And yes, the combine is over. The draft will be the next big thing after free agency. But right now, it's all about free agency. And it's a landmark free agent season, especially for the Philadelphia Eagles, who have about 20 guys, 20 free agents that they're all dealing with. And so that has caused a whole sort of like this cauldron of information and wonderment of what's going to happen, especially on defense. So we have intel on that. We've got intel on the coaching staff, which continues to make changes, and we'll go through that there because this thing is probably far from done, as well as there are some holes to fill. So we'll talk about that and just kind of get into everything we've heard at the combine as well. And this will be a few action-packed podcasts in a row, Adam, right? Because we always do this, right? And then usually, like on the second podcast from when we're both back from the combine, is sort of when we do the empty the notebook. Because the big thing that people need to understand is you have to do a lot of follow-up stuff after the combine. You can't just go with everything you hear at the combine because lots of teams are having lots of conversations. They're still continuing after the combine, of course. What typically happens, Adam, I wanted to make sure I hit this early. I don't think this will be the case this year, but what has typically happened a lot is that within about 4 or 5 days after the combine, the Eagles will have usually ready to announce like an extension for a third-year player, right, who has a 4-year deal. They always come back from the combine, they get an idea of what they want to do. The Eagles really only have one player who happens to be Jalen Hurts, who fits that criteria. Everybody else is like right up against free agency. And you heard Howie talk about that's very unique. He ordinarily likes to have guys extended either after third year or in the regular season, right? Like Alshon Jeffrey, he signed to a 1-year deal, but in the season, he extended the contract because he didn't want Alshon to get that much closer to free agency. But I thought it was very interesting. I don't know if we talked about it on the last pod, how Howie said he specifically avoided doing that this year because he thought like there are so many marquee guys who earned contract extensions that if he gave for one or two and not the other, then it kind of breaks up the great locker room chemistry he had. And I actually buy that. I think that made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think Howie's learned a lot. There's no question. I talked to a lot of agents this week, personnel people. I always try to get their opinion of them and how it's changed. I mentioned that one note on our previous show, how a guy just didn't like him at all, really changed his opinion of him, not only just dealing with him, but just saw how he kind of rebuilt his career after he came back after the reassignment in 2015, and how he learned from a lot of his mistakes. He certainly wasn't perfect. He had a couple bad drafts over the last 6 or 7 years. We know that. But particularly the last 2 years, what he's been able to do to rebuild this roster is kind of remarkable. One of the best jobs I've ever seen in my career, of when it looks so bleak, and to do a semi-rebuild. They call it a retooling. They don't like the clubs don't like rebuild, but we know it's been a semi-rebuild. In 2 years to have arguably the NFL's best roster, and something you and I have heard for months is like everybody believes that you talk to that this is the NFL's best roster. Yeah, they didn't win the Super Bowl, but now as we move forward here, as Roseman, look, he's put it out there. It's on the Eagles website. I listened to every interview he did. I just wanted to get a sense of is there any nuggets. Sometimes he gives out nuggets and so forth. But he made it clear there's going to be a lot of change. He didn't want to be specific, obviously. He was not going to come back. Right. Well, he really wants these compacts. He won't stop that.
Right. And let's be fair, it would have been hard for him to be specific, as I'm pretty sure at the time of at the podium, he's not sure, right? Because the market is yet to be discussed, and he's not sure who can and can't come back. So, but we do have some information we'll get into. It's funny you mentioned reactions from agents to Howie. I feel like they're usually divided into 4 categories: guys who love Howie, guys who hate Howie, guys who liked him at the start, don't like him now, guys who didn't like him at the start, like him now. It's kind of funny how that works that way. I guess every general manager probably falls into those categories with agent, but Howie can be polarizing at times.
Yeah, it depends on your POV, your point of view of how you've dealt with them. And some agents will say that they've had lots of clashes, but they respect him, and because they know he works for the club side and he wants to get the advantage. But there's some times when guys have leverage. It's harder when you have to bring a player back and you have to pay, and there's not much you can do about it. So we'll have to see. Over the next week, we'll have a lot more information. Then we drop everything next Monday. When we drop next Monday morning is when we empty. There's some stuff we'll hold because we know, as Geoff just said, we have to make sure it's correct. You're not going to put something out there. We know how they feel about certain players, but they have to get through the situations and so forth. We'll just discuss some of this today. But it's going to be different, man. I definitely got that feeling. A lot of personnel people we spoke to sounds like, oh yeah, I think we're in on this player. Looks like Philly might lose this player, stuff like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see how negotiation goes. The one thing is we discussed this last year before we get started, is that teams typically are not talking money now unless it's the top of the line guys. They want to know what the agent wants. They know what the ballpark is, and they'll go, okay, we'll get back to you. Like that.
Right. All right, good stuff there. So speaking of free agency, the intel with Greg Cosell will be out on Wednesday. Now, we did corners episode 1. We did safeties episode 2. This week's intel with Greg Cosell is going to focus on the free agent defensive lineman. So we'll get his breakdowns of Javon Hargrave, what he saw on tape from him this year. We'll get his breakdown of Fletcher Cox, Greg saw of him this year and how he evaluated him, what the tape showed. And a little Brandon Graham too, because he's set to be a free agent as well. And then, for whatever, however many the guys that the Eagles can keep or not, we'll go through some free agents that are just going to be available and their tape as well. So we'll give both Eagles fans and NFL fans a taste of what's out there from the defensive line standpoint. There are some interesting names. I think there are some pretty good players who I wouldn't call like household names, but I think are good players. Like last year, Adam, for an example, and I think he had a good year for Jacksonville this year. I was a fan of Arden Key, a rotational defensive lineman who I thought was really good with San Francisco and would have been a good rotational guy for the Eagles. He went to Jacksonville, who was just like handing out money, like wow, here everybody, right? So Arden Key signed with them, and I think he had a pretty good year for them, if I'm not mistaken. So he's a player that again, not a household name, right? But a good player who can help a team. I feel like there's a bunch of those in defensive line this year.
Yeah, there are a lot of. This is what we call the middle class of free agency. The guy like Arden Key, who's very underrated. He's got good size. He's a Trent Baalke type of player. You speak of Jacksonville. He's a GM there. Baalke likes guys with long arms. And I could certainly see why they brought him in. He's kind of bounced around a little bit. You might remember him with the Niners and the Raiders and now the Jacksonville. But he's not old at all. He's only 26, turns 27 in May, and he could play stand-up outside linebacker. He could play as a 43 DN. He's a good player. But the one thing I would tell you on free agency in the Eagles, they'll be active at some point. They'll be a little bit more judicious with it because of as GM put it out there, so we don't have to guess. He put it out there. They're wanting a lot of comp picks, so they're not going to be on top of the market stuff, barring something surprising. They're not going to be spending like they did last year or the year before that. It's just not the way they're approaching it.
Glad you said that word. I have been sort of awake at night thinking of these things because I'm a loser, and I'm sure you do the same thing. Every time there's an off season, there's always a surprise. I don't know what it is. I can't tell you whether it's a trade, a cut, whatever, an acquisition, but there's always something. Like we didn't see the AJ Brown thing happening on draft day night, right?
No.
So there's between now and the end of the draft, even in free age, I just think that there's going to be, and trust me, bloggers, I'm not reporting anything. It's just our great educated guess of knowing that when things are a little quiet around the Eagles, right? Like there's like a calm, storm. Yeah, this is the calm right now, and there'll be a storm somewhere. I just think that something's going to happen that we haven't talked about, and it was just sort of a surprise. So,
James Bradberry, they signed him after the draft on May 19th. It didn't hit the compensatory formula.
Right.
Now, again, that was a low end deal in terms of it was 1 year for 7.25, and he had upside to 10 if certain parameters were hit. But it wasn't that it was a surprise. It made a lot of sense because they were going that route at corner. They didn't draft anyone to start, but in terms of a blockbuster type deal, that would surprise me. Now the AJ Brown thing it was an opportunity that Roseman saw in a trade. Now, could that happen? Could they find a trade close to the draft? What I always say, never say never with the Eagles. They find value. They find opportunity. We mentioned also Jason Peters and how they found that one because he wanted out and the Bills were not going to pay him. Yeah, those could always happen. And
yeah,
once you Gardner-Johnson deal, oh my God, that's like the best example.
Exactly.
Saints didn't want him. That they didn't trust him. Whatever the case may be, they had personality clashes. Eagles swooped in. They handled it the right way. They wanted to see how he worked. We'll over the next week or so, we'll get more into him. But no, it's all about opportunity, as you said.
I think it's a great point you make also about the acquisitions that he can make after the deadline is up for where it counts against your comp pick formula. That's really where how he likes to live there, man. I mean, we're talking about LeGarrette Blount. We're talking about who was the guy they signed last year after there was somebody else that they brought in after the was it Kazir White or no?
Kazir White was April 5th.
Yeah, that was early. There was someone that they brought in. I don't remember who. It might have been Jaquaski Tart, and it didn't work out. That's who it was. Tart didn't work out, but he likes to live there and get guys.
Just think about their luck, and we talk about sometimes part of how their Eagles' greatness the last couple of years in personnel is a little bit of luck. They never would have made the trade for
I know
Gardner-Johnson if Tart worked out. Think about that. I would say never say. I doubt that they would have done it. I can't say for sure, but I doubt it because if you're not trading for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to be a backup, you know what I mean?
Right.
It just worked out. What can I tell you?
It's amazing. And plus, who knows if he was even on the block at that point? Like he had to be on the block, and the Saints had to really work it out.
Yeah. When did he sign Tart?
They signed Tart in May or early June. That's what it was. They signed Tart in June. But, I mean, obviously, at that point, the Saints were probably still holding out hope. They didn't trade him until the end of the training camp.
Good point. Yeah, very fair. So, yeah, I'm looking at the signings last year of guys they brought in. We mentioned Kaiser White when he came in. Okay, Joseph and Sue were in November.
Yeah, that's clearly after the comp pick formula.
They actually signed their contracts on the same day. They actually technically executed. I'm looking at some information I have. That was defense. Offensively, no, the Browns trade.
I think a couple of years ago they may have gotten Eric Wilson, maybe.
Oh, that was in early part of free agency. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was earlier. Okay, I thought that was a later part.
That didn't work out. I'll double check the date there. Boy, that didn't.
Right. Yeah. No, that didn't work out though. All right. While you're looking, I want to let everybody know we're going to start. We've been pounding away at InsideTheBirds.com. Lots of great content. Andrew DeCecco is doing a great job. Our intern Ben Paul doing a good job finding good stories out there to put on the website. Adam Caplan's free agent for the first time ever. We're having Adam. We're going to have him publish his free agent rankings. And these are not just Adam like sitting at home like, who do I think is the? I mean, Adam does an amazing job of canvassing the league, talking to people. So, and then putting together his list on who he thinks are the top free agents at each position. So look for that soon. I don't have an exact date on when we're going to start that, but it'll come out soon. Right.
As you just said, just to add to it. Well, I must have moved 20 players this past week based on conversations I had with personnel people.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say, hey, what do you think of this guy, that guy? I'm like, wow, you like that guy like so much? I'll tell you what, we'll get more into this in a couple minutes, but you nailed this Isaac Seumalo note you had a couple weeks ago. I don't want to say I doubt it, but I get it. It's not a great free agent class at the guard or center, but he is not only clearly the guy. I did not know how much O-line coaches you and I were able to speak with last week about him. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
I guess it's just a matter of injury for him. It's been enough.
Yeah, that's usually the case why a guy that talented gets to free agency anyway to begin with.
Sure.
All right. Also, so wait, real quick with your free agency rankings, when we're going to do what we call a tease in this industry.
Okay.
Outside of any quarterbacks like Derek Carr, don't give me any quarterback names. Who is the top overall non-quarterback free agent?
I would have to say, well, see, Barkley, it's Monday. I would say Saquon Barkley's right up there. It's harder for me to say top guy because they're 4
Okay,
or
because
5.
you don't know who's going to get tagged yet. That makes sense.
Right. But I tell you, Isaac Seumalo, the respect that coaches have, particularly O-line coaches.
I don't think you're wrong about that. He's rated really highly.
And it's funny because you spoke to one team and I spoke to another team that said the same thing. But I'll just go into this right now. This O-line coach I spoke with said he's a 5-position player. I'm like, what? Because you realize you play left tackle in college. I said, yeah, but do you really seem like he playing left tackle? He goes, are you kidding me? Do you know how athletic this kid is? He goes, remember, he's down. We don't know what Philly has him for, but he's down in weight. He goes, no, he's not nearly as big as he used to be. I'm like, okay. He goes, watch the tape. I'm like, okay, hey, you would know. I'm like,
wow,
he's special. I'm like, okay. He
yeah.
didn't say elite, but he said he's really good.
Yeah.
But look, guys are going to get paid. Hargrave's going to get paid. We'll talk about him.
Yep.
He's going to get a lot of money. Tremaine Edmonds, the middle linebacker for the Bills, is terrific. If he get tagged,
good one.
Resigned, he'll get money. And then there's another a guy I think is going to be an XE. He's up. We're going to get into that guy. That guy's going to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
So another guy's going to get paid.
All right. Good stuff. All right. So look for that. The free agent rankings will be up on InsideTheBirds.com. Look for Andrew DeCecco's stories. They've been great. Intern Ben Paul putting a lot of stuff up on the website. And I'll be writing as well. So make sure you're looking for that. Go ahead.
On Andrew, his Eagles only mock draft, you have to, man, people are like, Adler, they love it.
Well, because it was realistic. It made sense. There were no reaches. He's not trying to sit there and draft like Bijan Robinson in the 5th round or anything like that. I mean, sometimes you look at these mock drafts and you're like, how do you think this guy is really going to be available in the 3rd round? I mean, come on,
Well, no. But what it is I think where people, what happens is with draft experts or some reporters have to do mock drafts, but they don't know every team well. Right. So they'll give, like, if, for instance, the Eagles. Yes, we reported this years ago. I told you when it happened. You asked me who the pick was when we were going to do that radio show in 2017 when the draft was here. I said they're going to go with McCaffrey, and I just know it. And nothing of what we've heard from sources since then said that we were wrong. But that was the only time I could think they would ever consider a running back. I know Robinson's a great player, but it's the super special versatility for the Eagles. If they stay at 10, I don't think they will, but we'll see. Because they're always looking for value. The value of this draft, man, and then with the Carter situation, it's not an elite draft. There are a lot of good players. It's just not filled with elite players. Sure. I don't see them going with Robinson 10. I don't think they would do that, only because he would have to be not only a 3-down back. I don't see them committing to the run as much to justify that pick. Because McCaffrey's so special. He's just an outlier. Like, we've not seen a running back like him in I don't know how long.
Right. So I want to agree with you on the trading down and the likelihood of that at 10. The only problem is who's trading up to 10 and for what? Yeah. Usually you trade up for a pass rusher or a quarterback. Sounds like these quarterbacks are going to be gone by 6 or 7, all 4 of them. And then we'll see if there's a pass.
I don't know about Richardson. Yeah, I know Richardson.
Man, have you been hearing the buzz on him though?
I know it's more of a fan thing in media because I'm not saying he won't go in the top 10. He's definitely a first round pick. Yeah, but the tape is the tape. The tape is widely inconsistent. He only started 1 year. Yeah, teams have this information. Like, they know more than everyone else.
Sure.
Yeah, he's fun. He's much bigger physically than people thought. In fact, I saw him. Enormous. I didn't. He's fun, but you got to remove the fandom and take him for what he is, and he's a major project. But and there's some bad comparisons here. People talk about, remember Malik Willis. First of all, Willis went to Liberty.
Oh my God, Malik
Willis. Much smaller physically. Yeah, I saw some stuff out there before he had his workout. It's easy for people to say, well, Willis also is much smaller, and that's true, but Willis was just a kid who had a strong arm. This kid has got a lot. He's got way more than that. I know his accuracy is there, and he had some inaccuracy problems. It's fair. It's what the tape showed. Right. But Fran Duffy came on with me from the Eagles website. Thought he had a great point on the fantasy channel with John Hanson and I. You got to really grade all the, which is what personnel people do and coaches will do. You have to look at, why was this ball off? Was it dropped? Was it where he should have been? Because maybe the real accuracy numbers could be higher. But There's no question. He's super raw. That's what the tape shows. I talked to enough coaches this week that find him interesting. But are you willing as a head coach or general manager to put your job on the line for this kid? Basically, other than the Eagles, okay? I don't know that Houston would take him to, but if you're Nick Caserio, who's on thin ice as it is, he's got to do a better job. He's done a very good job. The Colts, Chris Ballard's definitely got to get it right. At 4, at 7, Josh McDaniels, okay, and Dave Ziegler. 8, we'll see what the Falcons want to do. Carolina clearly is in the market for a quarterback. So are these guys? A lot of these guys have their jobs on the line here. So
yeah, see, I think ego. You've seen this. Ego gets in the way, right? So if they see a quarterback like Anthony Richardson and they know he's a little raw and he needs work, I could see guys like Arthur Smith and Shane Steichen after what he's done here in Philadelphia, and other guys just thinking I can be. I'm the guy. I'm the one, man. Like I'm going to turn that guy into the human highlight me under my tutelage because I did it with this guy, or I'm Arthur Smith and Ryan Tannehill look good under me. Like, same thing. Coaches have egos. So I can see that being the case. But I also think the kid, man, there's a lot to like with him, even with the tape being raw. So,
we don't see it, but the history going back to the 60s, I don't have the number in front of me. Mm-hmm. It was either Banner or Bill Polian. Of course, no, it had to be Polian because he didn't like my note. We were working together on NFL Insiders in 17. When I said Trubisky would be a top 10 pick, you can mark it down. And he wasn't mad at me. He goes, he just felt it was so dumb for the Bears to do that, or not whoever. He didn't know it was going to be there. Obviously, no one did. But I said, he's going in the top 10. I didn't say it's the right decision.
Right.
I'm just telling you based on my information. And he goes, do you realize since he had, I don't know how he knew this. It's like he had it in his head. Since 1960. It's whatever, 69, 68. The amount of Division I quarterbacks that's only started 1 year, the success rate is so low because it's simple. They haven't had enough starts. Maybe Trubisky had 13 or 15. I don't remember.
Right.
And he was right. This kid's way more gifted. But you're willing to put your job on line. But I like your point on Chris Ballard, for instance, right? This is what their thinking was. The Bears, unfortunately, got fired after it. But they thought when they made the big trade up, you get Justin Fields, this would buy them time. That was the feeling in their building. Unfortunately, ownership thought otherwise. But you wonder if they shock the world and draft Richardson, would that buy them time?
Yeah. If there's one wish I could have as an NFL draft analyst group that we could do better at in society is stop always comparing white players to white players and black players to black players. Like we've reached a point where you have tremendous athletes at quarterback, at running back, at defensive back of all different races and colors. We got to be able to say, this guy reminds me of this guy. Like when everybody said last year that George Karlaftis reminded them of the other Purdue guy who used to play for the Washington.
Ryan Kerrigan.
I'm like, can't we do better than that? Like, come on, right? And so I would love for us to get to that point.
No, what happened with
although
Willis
some prospects just don't have like what I see from Anthony Richardson at that size, at that ability. I don't even know if there's ever been a guy built like that, like him.
Well, okay, no, but Josh Allen's 6'5", 240. Wentz was 6. He wasn't Wentz put on bulk.
But this guy actually runs faster than Josh Allen.
I know he's way better in terms of straight line and his vertical. Wasn't his vertical over 40?
Like what he's doing belies comparisons. It's just unbelievable what he did.
But again,
athletically,
we weren't planning on talking about the quarterback position because Eagles don't need it. But the thing is, though, you have to. How does that translate to being quarterback? You have to. That's that. I can't wait to have these. We're going to have these discussions. I know it's not now, but we'll get Greg. We'll probably do quarterbacks. Just because Greg is a quarterback guy, we'll probably do a little bit of that with Greg for the draft, because I did talk to Cosell privately about he had such importance. He goes, he's graded him already, and he and I see it the same way. You better have a plan for this kid. You better have a veteran quarterback. Just you can't assume he's going to be ready.
There you go. There you go. All right, so moving on. Again, the intel of Greg Cosell will be out this week. Also, we've got a former NFL GM lined up to do our Patreon series. I think he's a different former GM than we have on in the past, at least for Patreon. And I think what we're going to do is not just say, who do you like, right? We're going to go through the whole process like we've done with the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, head coach. I think fans are going to really be educated by this. And I think that all fans wonder, like, how does the team prepare for free agency? How do these guys have all these guys evaluated? How do they have them valuated? Like, how do you know how much each is worth and how much to pay? How do you have them in the scheme? What do the coaches think? Like, you're a GM. It's not just as easy as, right? I mean, you've got an army of scouts. So we want to know all about the process. How does it get whittled down? When does it begin? When does it end? And what are all the disruptions that happen in between? And then, if there's a great story about a disagreement or just something that didn't work out, I'm sure our guy will have some type of great story on what wasn't planned.
No, you nailed it. It just we've never really talked about how this is done with the foreign personnel people, GMs and whoever we had on, even coaches. They're gonna. This is not a walkthrough. This is actually a deep dive. This is so I ran into the guy at the did I run into the Super Bowl? I can't remember, but I definitely ran into it earlier this week, or excuse me, last week. And he loved the idea. He goes, "Oh, this is interesting." He goes, "You got some ideas?" I said, "How about these 5 things?" He goes, "Oh, I could add a lot to them." I'm like, great.
Awesome. Going to be wonderful. So look for that on our Patreon. You want to subscribe, patreon.com/ nowadays, just patreon.com/inside the birds.
And my chat Wednesday night. And we're also we got a live Q&A coming later this month.
Yes, we do. Looking forward to doing that. All right. Let's get into the coaching updates here with the Eagles, as there are more changes to the Eagles staff. The biggest one is, and we were sort of alluding to this not that we knew this was going to happen, we just knew there was a potential of it. And that's after the Eagles named Sean Desai as their defensive coordinator, things sort of got fluid with Dennard Wilson, their defensive backs coach, who was the runner-up for the job. And apparently he is now, the Eagles said they'd welcome him back. They made it seem like there was some decision-making going on there, and they have parted ways. Now, to my knowledge, at the time of us doing this, Adam, I don't know that Dennard Wilson has a job lined up. We're sort of efforting that, but I mean, it sounds like this just, he didn't get the job, and he just no longer wants to be sort of employed by the Eagles.
It's actually a mutual decision. We understand. Okay. I don't know. I could tell you, it's not a surprise that he's leaving because of the Sirianni kind of put it. I don't say his response is cryptic when he was asked about it, when Wednesday or Tuesday, whenever he spoke last week. But it seemed kind of ominous.
Yeah,
we're not surprised that he's leaving, but we're looking to find out what happened. There's a lot of speculation. We're not going to get into it, but there's a lot of speculation of how his conversation went down. I can just tell you the timing is bad. Let's be real here. The timing is not good. The in-house candidate would be DK McDonald, who's the assistant DBs coach, who's coach corners and safeties, very well respected in their building. If they go that route outside the building this late, good luck. I don't know. They'll help somebody. Whether it's promoting McDonald or hiring someone else outside of the organization. Mm-hmm. It's a shame. I don't. Geez, they've had so many guys leave. This is not, the timing is bad. Let's call it like it is. And by the way, he was there. He was seen by people. So I'm assuming he had a meeting in person.
Right.
With Sirianni.
I saw him there personally.
Yeah. No, in fact, Desai was on my plane, as I said. He was on my plane flying up there. So yeah, this is because here's why it's not good. Not only is he one of their best assistant coaches, he did a great job of managing the personalities in that room. The one of the real reasons why I think that Gardner Johnson was able to have the season that he had is because of this guy was able to coach him. Mm-hmm. Gardner Johnson's not the easiest guy to deal with. The Saints,
correct,
more or less learned that because they decided not to get a deal done with him. They were not close on the extension back in whatever that was, August. And he handles Slay, alpha personalities extremely well. Guy played in the league for a brief period of time. One of the best DBs coaches in the league. This is bad. I mean,
it's not good. You're absolutely right. And we talked about sort of the collateral damage. I use that term that can occur when you make a difficult decision. And Nick Sirianni was pretty candid about how decisions like these aren't easy to make. And I think his words were, at the end of the day, I have to do what's best for the team. And it's a tough pill to swallow, but I think you made a really cogent point last podcast. You said, look, Dennard Wilson is not going to be the first or last guy to get passed up for a job. And it could have very well happened if Vic Fangio hadn't taken the Miami job and, Gannon left and Fangio still, it could have been Vic Fangio. And so, you're nothing's guaranteed, nothing's given to you. And listen, I get being upset. And, if he's leaving, the mutual decision for him to leave because he feels like there's a better opportunity for him somewhere else. Okay, tip the cap. Then you do that. And I speculated to you as a joke, sort of like a weird juxtaposition would be if maybe then Seattle went and hired him as their senior defensive assistant, because that's what Sean Desai was, right? Wouldn't that be kind of? But and yeah, that's just a speculative humor.
Yeah, I honestly I don't know. The word that the people are putting out, it's mutual. I know sometimes it's not mutual. The team could have fired somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. I understand personnel, whether it's personnel person or coaching staff, but we want to know what happened. Forget the term that they used. I want to know what the hell happened.
Yeah,
this is not good. Timing is. This guy's. I've heard nothing but incredible stuff about this guy, and I just know that he did a great job of managing Gardner Johnson. He's not easy to coach, and what they got an elite player out of that kid. For we've everybody knows who listens to the show. And you heard Greg Cosell's. I know Greg doesn't do rankings. I could have sworn that if he was doing, he put Gardner Johnson over
Bates,
the safety for the Bengals.
Jesse Bates.
Jesse Bates, yeah. I mean, just because Gardner Johnson's the best versatility of any safety. And the thing is, it's the other thing about Gardner Johnson. It's not easy to coach. He's a freelancer. But Greg said, remember he talked to Ed Reed about it. You don't try to rein in a freelancer who's elite in terms of tracking football. You just live with it.
It's kind of funny because we used to talk about Carson Wentz that way, coming out of 2017, losing John DeFilippo, some of the issues that, this were some of our very first podcasts, right? Because we started that August in 2017 after the Eagles had won the Super Bowl. DeFilippo and Reich were gone by that point, and we were saying this is a guy who likes to do his own thing a little bit and sometimes can be difficult to coach. And DeFilippo has been on with us talking about he has nothing against. He says nothing bad about Carson.
He likes Carson. In fact,
he does say he challenged him though. Yeah, he had a challenge.
He did. John said he had a great talk with Wentz in Washington last summer because John was on a tour, and John coaches hard and said that. And this guy, Dennard Wilson, coaches hard. These guys respect him. And Mike Groh coaches the receivers hard. They love him. Chad Hall coaches receivers. If you go through the coaches who are known in the business but get tremendous respect. Just moving the forward here, Wilson got these guys to play the right way, the way that he wanted them to play, and to live with some of the swag that Gardner Johnson had. The Eagles know that, and I know we'll get into if we have time, we'll get what Gardner Johnson knows. Not much. There's they're working on it, but this is just I'm. Folks, we call this stuff down the middle. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but this guy's a really good coach. I don't know who they're going to get. We'll find out too.
Yeah, no, you're right. And your point on DK McDonald, he has, he's an Iowa State guy. We know Nick Sirianni is very close to the Iowa State coach Campbell. Is it Matt Campbell? Coach Campbell.
Right. Tom Manning was the guy, the OC.
And Tom Manning was, but he's also close with the head coach too.
Yeah,
I think. So DK McDonald was a longtime coach there at Iowa State. He's coached for a while. He's 18 years coaching, but only 2 in the NFL, being the last 2 years. So, again, we're not saying he's definitely getting the job, but you would think as the assistant defensive backs coach, he's a candidate for it. And I agree with you. I think when you look at the resume, it's a drop off from Dennard Wilson. And think about this also, Adam, just to really put a bow on this. We have been impressed so far with Nick Sirianni's ability to coach his coaches aggressively when they need to be, and with his coaches, as you just mentioned, Dennard Wilson will challenge you. He's a strong-minded coach. That's what you want. We talked about the difficulties of seeing that in the Doug Peterson era, starting with Doug himself not really wanting to coach his coaches all the time. So when you have that and you see the success, it's tough to lose that. And, you're going to have to overcome it. But it's not insurmountable, but it is. Sure. I agree with you. A loss. It's a loss.
Tim Houck's still out of work. I think he was supposed to go. No, because he was supposed to go with Peterson, but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
He's,
that'd be like old reliable. Hey Tim, you come back to the Eagles again?
Yeah, and maybe Andy needs you to play safety for about a month now. We can get a ring. No, I'm just kidding. But it's as Eagles turn here. So one other note that we got here. Oh yeah, Joe Casper. So Joe Casper, who's now the safety coach of the Dolphins, He also had an offer from Gannon, we're told, to join the Cardinals, so he chose the Dolphins with Vic Fangio.
Mhm.
The reason why I'm bringing this up is it's too bad that he left, because right now nobody knew this at the time. Now that Dennard Wilson's out, I'm not saying this would have been a big jump for him. He could have had a pretty decent role here, but he has a decent role with a
Yeah.
Dolphins.
Yeah. All right. So we'll see where they go forward as far as the secondary coaches. The defensive coaching staff continues to be reshaped and potentially added to. We'll get into another addition in a second, but first we want to stop to hear a little word from our great friends and sponsors. Okay, so let's go back to the combine, right? We find out Sean Desai is going to be the new defensive coordinator. You and I start getting to work immediately. You know, what's he all about? You know, and Nick Sirianni talks about bringing in staff members, that he's going to leave some of that to Deshaun. Sean, I said Deshaun, I meant Sean. Sean Desai. And so we start getting to work, and we got some sourcing, pretty strong sourcing, I would say, that said, you know, we knew this guy wanted to bring in a senior consultant who had linebacker coach experience, right? We came across a couple of names, and one of the names that we came across that we were able to get double, like we heard it from more than one person, was Mike Pettin. You know, I put a tweet out at the combine, you know, that look out for a senior defensive assistant type who also can coach linebackers. I mentioned Mike Pettin. He was with the Vikings. He's still with the Vikings. He is their assistant head coach, which is a pretty high title. I think we mentioned on the last podcast. So in order to try to get Mike Pettin, you'd really have to like give him something huge, because he's doing well there with the Vikings. And I'd also heard that he's still under contract there. So, and you know, if there's interest, they're probably gonna hook him up. But the other name we heard that we didn't go with just because it was one source, but now it's been out there by other people, was Matt Patricia from the New England Patriots. So he is someone. Now, I want you to explain this story, right, fully, because we know that he was the offensive play caller for the Patriots last year. And that worked out about as well as it did for Juan Castillo here as the defensive play caller, defensive coordinator. No disrespect to Juan, wasn't all his
fault. I saw Juan this past week.
Yeah, I saw him too. So then they hired Bill O'Brien back to be the offensive coordinator, and that sort of put Patricia's job in flux there. Like, he didn't just automatically go to the back to the defensive side, right?
Yeah, so in these Saints, Sean Payton's looking at them as to add to their staff in Denver. But so I know that. Well, let me get back to Pettin just for a second. We were told by a source close to Pettin that he's not coming to Philly. Because there was just no way. He's from here. We know, if you follow his career, his dad, famous high school coach. It just, you couldn't. There's just no way you can get him out of here unless save being defensive coordinator. They could block him. And they already have decided, so it wouldn't work. Though they definitely was on their list or the size list. But with Patricia, let's move to him. Let's not forget, we haven't talked about this in 3 years, but we just need to bring this up because it's apropos for what we're talking about. So if you look at Darius Slay, right? It's not exactly a secret Slay couldn't stand Patricia. A line source back then, and I found the email. I found my email to you. And our sourcing on it. So basically, Slay was struggling. He didn't have a good year. His last year, was it 2019? Last year?
2000, yeah, 19. Yep.
Okay. So it got so bad, it actually affected his play. I know it's hard to quantify, but it's the high-ranking line source felt that this guy loved Slay. He had nothing bad to say about Slay. He said that his issues with Patricia were sort of affecting him a little bit, and it was less of a divorce, more of a separation. He just had to go, and the Eagles were, if you recall, got a great deal. They didn't have to overpay for him, but it didn't work. So you fast forward to now. If this does happen with Patricia, based on what you and other people are reporting, I get that he wouldn't be coaching Slay, but man, this is. I wonder if Sirianni talked to Slay about this.
Well, it's funny because this recently came up because, when you're at the Super Bowl, you get all the media there and
Yeah.
stuff was going on with Patricia at the time. And somebody from, I read it in Sports Illustrated. I couldn't tell if it was aggregation or for them, but
Okay.
Slay said, Slay apparently said that, he was working out with Richard Sherman and Aqib Talib,
Yeah.
and that Patricia basically said you shouldn't work out with them because you're not as talented as them. And the exact quote is, this is from Darius Slay, quote, he basically just said you are not in that category yet. At that time, I only have one Pro Bowl, but now I'm at 5. So I want to know how he feels about that now. I don't wish bad on him, but as a man, me and him just don't get along. He's a smart coach. He knows his X's and O's, but the disrespect is not what I'm with.
See, and Patricia and
And
a
by the way,
lot
he
of
wasn't the only one that was outspoken about Patricia from the Lions.
yes, there's some yes. Although I'm told he actually tried to change, but it was just too late.
Mm-hmm.
The toothpaste was out of the tube, as he said. He got he knew that he screwed up, not just with Slay, but he just didn't treat people great. And he tried to be a mini Belichick. It didn't work. The shame of it is, I don't know the guy, but talking to coaches are pretty close. He's actually very funny. Like, not when you get him away from coaching, he's hilarious and people like him. But he changed a lot of these former Belichick guys, personnel people too. They change and they become someone maybe that they're not because they think they have to be different, particularly with the Lions, but a lot of losing. But see, it isn't funny. All the sort of the Lions they were number 13 in our power rankings to go in the offseason. They
Yes.
finally seem to be getting it right in Patricia lead.
Yeah, the Lions are my team to really rock it up again.
Yep.
I think they can be a top 3 NFC team next year, especially depending on what goes on here. In the
Hell
NFC.
yeah! And
Yeah.
by the way,
It wouldn't shock me if it was like Lions Eagles in the NFC Championship game.
and the people who think that Jared Goff isn't very good. I know that the Twitter world does not. Did you see him last season?
He has been to a Super Bowl, correct?
Yeah, I get that he struggled. There's no question he was bad at the end of his career with the Rams, and the head coach wanted him gone, Sean McVay. But man, he revived his career. And give Ben Johnson credit, man. That kid, boy, the Lions are think about being happy about the guy didn't get a job with the Panthers.
Yeah.
On the other team, jeez.
Yeah, and on just like with the Rams, like they're building their Lions a good team around him, so he doesn't have to be like Tom Brady. And he's got really good receivers with Brown and Jamison Williams coming up, and somebody else whose name I'm
see what happens, folks.
Forgetting. Yeah,
Giants, are you out there? If you help Daniel Jones and you take a page out of the Lions and the Eagles when you help your quarterback, they can become better.
Right. So just to get back to Patricia, now the report that came out Sunday was from Karen Garigian from the Boston Herald. She's been doing this for a long time.
Ever.
What's that?
She covering the Patriots forever.
Forever. Yeah. And she said that she was hearing that there was interest between the Eagles and Patricia, and she wrote presumably for a linebackers coach. But I still think that wouldn't. Don't you think it would fall under the senior assistant / linebackers coach?
Well, no, they wanted when we checked into it at the combine last week.
Mm-hmm.
What we were told was the linebacker coach would act as that senior member of the staff to help.
Right.
Like they wanted the linebackers coach to have. They didn't want to go with the young guy barring something like if they couldn't find anyone, okay, they would go with the younger person. But they really want, and I think it might have been Desai's idea.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's John Pagano, who you also mentioned, that don't dismiss that one because Sirianni knows him, whoever it is. But it sounds like Patricia is the one that's probably going to happen if it does it all this week with a veteran guy.
Yeah.
But again, as I said, I wonder. This is fascinating with Slay. So much has happened this past week with this last couple of weeks. The staff and obviously not most of it is not positive. Whether Brian Johnson, who they think is the world of, they think he's a tremendous coach. It's great. But you just like the aggregate number of coaches moving on. It's not good when you look. It doomed Andy Reid.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird. They might have a linebackers coach very soon, but now they might need a defensive backs coach in the process. And then I still think that they're probably looking to replace Casper as they probably want a defensive quality control coach, which might be an in-house guy. But and then. Do they have, because was Tanny both the assistant quarterbacks coach and quality control offense?
I would say this one on that. I'm glad you mentioned that. Do not dismiss who they hire for this job, defensive quality control, Because as you mentioned with Tanny, he was an offensive quality control assistant, and I think then he got promoted. I'll double check on this one.
I think yes, you're correct.
And then because they do such a great job of hiring this Eagles for years. That's why they get poached so much, because they hire really good coaches. Are they perfect? No. Did they get them all right? No. But they're right up there and making the right decisions with assistants, and part of it's Roseman smartly making sure that the coaches get retained. Some of the great coaches, obviously Stoutland and Deuce Staley, before Deuce left to go to Detroit. But I'm just talking about from Chip Kelly's staff. That's smart. Like that means he knows who the good coaches are. That's good when not all GMs know, believe it or not.
Right. By the way, you mentioned Deuce. I saw Deuce at the combine on a night where it was not a great night to be a 2000 Eagle, and I want to just bring that up really quickly and just recognize and give our thoughts, our prayers, our well wishes, everything to Jeremiah Trotter, who lost his wife to I believe it was breast cancer while we were out in Indianapolis. Talked to a couple of Eagles from that day, and apparently not a lot of people knew about it. They may have suspected something was up, but I don't think that it was, everybody knew. And so it's terrible. We feel for Jeremiah. We wish him the best. I don't know if he listens to ITB or if somebody does that can communicate to him. I mean, we could. I could reach out. But yeah, just terrible. And then I saw Deuce, and Deuce is now with he's not with Detroit anymore. He's with who's he with? Atlanta?
Carolina.
No, Carolina. Thank you, with Reich. Right. And we talked about it for a few minutes. But Deuce is doing well. He's looking good, and happy for him to be in Carolina there.
For sure. The part about social media sometimes is I find out about deaths, whether it's Twitter or Facebook, and I saw it on Doc's Facebook page.
Yep.
It just stops you in your tracks. I worked with Trot with the Eagles from a media standpoint, I think, for a season. Got to know each other. He's great energy and positivity, and it just and I get seeing it there just stopped me in my tracks, man. Just, all hurts out.
Yeah, Trot's a great dude, man. And I'll tell you one thing, man. That dude can. I learned this just from last year, right? That dude can golf, man. He can hit the ball, right? Every time he wins all the charity golf tournaments, man. He's amazing.
Yeah, good. I didn't know that.
Oh God, yeah. His group was like 18 under at the live golf tournament put together.
I know Seth
Turner.
Seth's a friend of ours. I know his story. We need to have him on again. His story. He didn't even like golf. No, he did. He felt he obviously is in love with the sport. He goes and he plays all the time. But his story, I don't want to give it away. Now that I've said the draft have months in.
Yeah.
But we've done his show. But it's amazing how people fall in love with the sport they didn't even like initially, and then they just keep playing. Like, wow, I really love the sport.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let us get into free agency. We'll move past the coaches. We'll keep you updated. By the way, if something happens and the podcast only comes out twice a week, that's why you go to InsideTheBirds.com. We'll have everything up down there, and with good context and explanation as to why things happen and what went on. So make sure you're always locked into that. Bookmark it if you can. We're getting to free agency now. Before we do that, we're going to pause one last time so you can hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And of course, also, we want to direct you to our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. All right, with free agents, we'll go through position, by position on what we have instead of individual by individual. We'll start with quarterback. You hearing anything on quarterback, Adam?
No, on Minshew, no. What I've heard is that they're not on him yet. That doesn't mean they don't want to bring him back. And I don't. When I see these reports, the team hasn't made an offer to this player. It doesn't really mean until this coming weekend. Now it will mean something for any free agent, for any team. If a deal's not, free agency starts next Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern. It doesn't start the following Wednesday. It starts Monday. As we said last week, all the top free agents are pretty much, most are pretty done by the end of Tuesday. Before the official bell goes off at 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. It's not like it used to be. Do you remember the time? And I hated this because I had to stay up 24 hours when free agency would start at 12 midnight.
Yeah, I remember the time.
Absolute worst.
Yeah, I remember Asante Samuel like being up at like midnight, 12:30, 1 a.m.
This is how old I am. Who was the corner for the Bills? He wound up signing a monster deal with the Niners.
Like corner for the Bills who signed a monster deal with the Niners.
It was like the biggest cornerback deal in NFL history.
Gosh, now I'm getting. I don't remember. I can see it, but I can't like remember. It wound up not working out very well.
He was okay. He wasn't the play right, but I just remember putting this deal out, and I just remember like I had to stay up like 48 hours for it. I just remember being Nick Clements.
Clements. Wasn't he a safety?
Corner.
Safety. Okay, go corner. Gotcha.
At least when they signed him, he was. But anyway, I just remember having to stay up, and I'm like, why did they make it? Why would they go off at 12 midnight? This isn't March. What's the thing that the
like the Midnight Madness?
That's it.
Yeah,
you know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, come on. And then, what happened was it wasn't the media complaining. Clubs were complaining. Like the GMs were like, why are we up? This is so stupid.
It's ridiculous. It was so stupid. It was so easily correctable that you would wonder why it was taking so long.
I mean, and I have to. Okay, speaking of that, we'll get to the run back in a second. I do want to give the NFL credit. They let, for the first time ever, it wasn't just 10 of us. I used to go to watch the workouts, but only one day. Now they're letting any media member go who's credentialed to watch every single workout. And you could, what they would, before they wouldn't let us tweet anything.
Mm-hmm.
It was so secret. Now it's not. They finally gave up. And
well, I mean, they're putting it on television, so why would you be tweeting anything? Like Joe Fan can see it, Jane Fan can see it, but I can't tweet it.
Exactly. Speaking of that, the person we spoke with who works in the NFL from the office level said exactly that, as you just said. It got to the point it's so absurd. They're putting the workouts on television. Why would you not let reporters tweet about it? Because the old school personnel people are offended that they open this thing. It's not a secret society anymore, and they don't like it. But it got to be so absurd. The NFL office people won their argument. Thank you. That's all I got to say.
I think they also let more. I think they increased the number of fans from whatever it was previously this year, and you could really tell, especially during the quarterback drills. There were a lot of oohing and eyeing going on. So that was fun. I think it made it fun. And from what I understand, they are discussing ideas on maybe having not like competitive drills, but maybe having certain drills that you might see going on at the same time, like maybe 3 quarterbacks throwing at the same time, or 5 guys running the 40 all at the same time, which, you know, it sort of creates a little competition, like who's going to run the fastest, but you're really just running your 40 anyway. So they're always looking for ways to make it a little bit more viewer friendly. So therefore, well, let's be real. They're always looking for ways that they can make more money.
More money.
Being more viewer friendly is making more money. And if they ever move this thing out of Indianapolis, it's 100% to make more money, to get more fans in the stadium.
Go to LA. They're signed through 24.
Yeah. And
I mean, I know Dallas might be on the radar too, but I have a bad feeling to go to LA. That's where NFL Network is. But c'est la vie, so is life.
Yeah. Although if you really want to increase, the only way to make more money of it is you're not going to get that many more viewers, because it's really well viewed. It would be more people in the stands. If you want to increase more people in the stands, LA ain't your place. Like Dallas, yeah. Philly, I mean, well, they're never having Philly, but like, you know, more football centric cities, probably. LA would just be like, it's close to NFL Network. That saves us a lot of money. We don't have to pack all of our crap up and haul it somewhere. But I don't know that you're going to fill SoFi Stadium the way you would fill AT&T Stadium in wherever, Arlington.
Oh, and by the way, so easy to get to downtown Indianapolis. You don't need a car, as you know. You don't need a car. Just take an Uber from the airport. Pro tip: check Lyft and Uber prices at the same time. 9 times out of 10, Lyft is cheaper, and actually sometimes it's significantly cheaper. Every once in a while, Uber will beat a Lyft price, but I learned that the hard way. Sometimes. It is funny how it'll change like within 2 minutes. Like, wait a minute, It's just because the price, whatever.
Yes.
It got heavier, the traffic. So
Yeah. Now, New Orleans would be a great place because it's a dome. It's a nice warm
Sure.
environment. They fill it up, but then like you got all sorts of like, do I really want all the NFL in New Orleans when I really need everybody's head clear? Like I need these prospects in their hotels,
Yeah.
not doing anything crazy at night.
Sure.
Like I don't know if you really want
It's
to.
actually a great point. It's actually because you don't want these kids
Oh,
running around. I remember in 17, Jeff and I worked on the story on Reuben Foster got in a fight.
mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. He got some sort of altercation. I don't remember what Schefter put out there, but I added something to it. Yeah, something about he was somehow he was getting, it was the the medicals take forever, and Foster got an altercation with maybe someone trying to tend to him. Forget what I added, but I just remember being like, this. How the hell? I to this day I don't know why it happened. I just know that he got an altercation, and when he dropped, obviously because he had significant off the field concerns, but he's a great football player.
Mm-hmm.
But it's stuff like the Carter thing. We'll talk more about the Carter in future shows because when we get closer, we'll get better information. It's more free agency right now, but
Yeah,
the Carter situation is going to be fascinating. The kid from Georgia who got charged with two misdemeanors.
mm-hmm.
We'll see what comes out on him. If there's anything else with background is off the field history, but man, it does shake up the top 10. There's no question.
Absolutely. All right, getting back to free agents. So we told you about Minshew. Nothing there really yet. Running backs. So, the Miles Sanders thing is interesting because it's what still needs to happen is an understanding of the market, right? There have been some reports that I don't think it's official. Like Pollard, it sounds like Pollard's going to go back to Dallas if you believe the reports coming out of that area.
Yeah, he's there.
I would think he would. Always thought he would. Yeah.
Oh, they've. I mean, they haven't been. I love Stephen Jones because he doesn't hide anything. Jerry's son. Oh, right. He's not going anywhere.
Right.
It's just whether Zeke comes back as his backup. Do they cut Zeke? If he comes back, Zeke's getting a major pay cut. We know that. So you take Pollard off the list, and Barkley, one way or the other, he's expected to return. But on Sanders, so I'm not doubting. I know what's out there. Most people think he's going to leave, and I get that. And I'm sort of with them, but not quite after being at the combine. What we did here is the Eagles have interest in resigning him, but at their price, we don't know what their price is. It's too early to know that. But talking to a bunch of teams, like they're here, like these teams know each other. Like they kind of know what the, although the numbers aren't being exchanged, they just kind of know that some stuff. And hearing from a couple of teams, based on what you and I have heard, that don't discount him coming back. I mean, now again, if he wants $10 million or more, obviously he's not coming back. But if they could get him at like that James Conner contract, which I talked about in the fall, I never thought it would be realistic. I was just throwing it out there. But it's $6 or $7 million a year. I mean, how could you? Again, if it goes that way, we don't know if it will. But if it does, if you're the Eagles, how would you not bring him back at that?
I don't know. I mean,
What do you want?
I'm torn on this because my sourcing comes from people just familiar with the Eagles and looking at the organization, sort of like what we did, and they're wondering how you justify even paying James Conner money to a guy who you're slowly phasing out. I mean, James Conner got overpaid, but at least he was going to be, the main back in that Cardinals backfield. Whereas I guess if you can bring back, he's still your main back, but all of their language, all their actions. I mean, what did he play? 57% of the snaps. So he's just a few percentage points about being away from somebody else being just as influential as him in the backfield. So,
well, they have all the leverage in the world, right? Now, Connor got a deal. He got a 3-year deal. He got a little bit more. He got 7 a year. Now, if you want to say James Conner's had a major injury history, but he's very productive, and he can also play in third. Great around the goal line, bigger, obviously much bigger physically than Sanders. Look, if I'm the if his agent, if he goes, hey, couldn't get what we wanted, would you re-sign my client 2 years at $12 million? You wouldn't do that. $6 million a year.
You know what? Like, listen, if your sourcing says, hey, it's keep the door open, then I believe it. It's just it's just so weird how many people I spoke to, again, not within the organization, but who know the organization, said to me when I was asking around on it, like, saying to me, even if you could get him at cheap, do the Eagles really want him?
Oh,
That was I must have heard that from 2 or 3 or 4 people to make me think, like, do they know that, or are they just speculating? So I don't know. But I think they make a good point. Like, even if you could save yourself the 5 million or 6 million, if you're fortunate enough to be able to bring him at that price, right? Let's say you just didn't pay it and saved yourself that 5 or 6 and went forward with, you've got Kenny Gainwell, you got Boston, you can bring back very cheaply. You got Trey Sermon. You can go out and get a run like there. You can always go out and get running back. Aren't there guys that you think the Eagles or know of that the Eagles will probably be interested in?
Let's move to that. Exactly where I was going to go. All I'm saying is just don't roll it. I'm with
that's fair.
most people. I think there's a better chance he leaves than comes back. But I just talking to some smart people. I'm like, okay, I won't rule it out. Remember these names. First of all, as we reported at the trade deadline, the Eagles were pretty deep in the talks with the Browns, who wound up not making the trade for Kareem Hunt. But Kareem Hunt's a very good football player. We know about the off-the-field history. But the fact that the Eagles are looking to acquire him potentially tells you that they know about him. And he's younger than I thought. It seems like he's been in the league forever. He was a third-round pick at 17. Outstanding pass protector. He's got good size. Well over, he was like 210, 215, that area. But when you look at the Browns did not really try hard to extend his contract. No one thinks he's going back there. I'd certainly be surprised if he did. He turns just 28. It's not like he has a major injury history. He was on IR 2 years ago, but again, he hasn't been hurt a lot. He turns just 28 in August, so he's 28 this season. That's the way you look at him. So he would fit in a committee approach because they want to take a look at Sermon. We know Gainwell is a guy who could play on third down, but Hunt could do everything. You could handle goal line and so forth. The name to look at. Another name we've heard that you could connect the Eagles to somewhat if they move on from Sanders is Alexander Madison, the Vikings running back, who's a free agent. Keep an eye on him. He's versatile. I remember one of the Vikings coaches telling me when he was drafted, one of the smartest rookies they had been around, does everything, third down if you need to. He's got size, goal line, whatever. Those type of backs. I don't see the Eagles signing a one-dimensional player. I know they like Gainwell on third down, but he's also smaller. Not super small. He's around 200, but these guys are bigger physically and strong and obviously experienced. Kareem Hunt more. And we'll have more names, but just some food for thought at running back.
Yeah, man, I love Alexander Madison. Always liked him. Loved that running style. Very hard, aggressive running style. So, and he's got some juice to him too. So,
yeah, there was some thought that Madison might have been included in the Rager. We checked into it. Either the Eagles didn't ask or they didn't want to trade him. They wanted him to back up Dalvin Cook. Because I thought like that would have been the perfect guy instead of getting a draft pick. I would have, quite personally, I just would have had Madison. Right. That's it.
Yeah, definitely. I still remember Kareem Hunt never fumbled at Toledo, fumbled in his first carry on national TV for the Chiefs. Then I don't think he fumbled again for the rest of the year. So he had a really good rookie year for the Chiefs. Good running back. So yeah, there's options. There's options here. Yeah.
Plenty of them.
All right, let's move on to the offensive line. We already mentioned Isaac Seumalo a little bit, and listen, we just can tell you our vibe from talking to people, and we know teams have him highly ranked. We know teams have him as both a guard and a center, so that only increases his optionality and what teams can do with him. He's got an injury history, but he's still young. That's the thing. I mean, it feels like he's been playing forever, but he's not yet 30, right? Am I correct about that?
Isaac was drafted. He'll be 30 this season. He turns 30 in October.
Right. So he's 29 right now.
Yeah, he's been on IR twice, but he's had other injuries. He's really good. He's got his weight under control. Got versatility. He is basically, if you really talk to enough people, and I know you had the great note like 2 or 3 weeks ago, he's more or less the top interior lineman, guard center free agent. I don't think it's particularly close. He's better than Dalton Reisner. No offense. Nate Davis is a good player as a guard from Tennessee, but he's better. Ben Powers is a sort of an underrated free agent from Baltimore. He's better than him. The rest are older players. He's better than Connor McGovern. Talked to so many O-line coaches have him graded higher than the Jets. McGovern. Bradberry's too small. Bradley
Mhm.
Bozeman, I know the Panthers want him back. Jake Brendel's he's kind of a sleeper for each. He's a little bit older, but good player. Nick Gates is out there, from what I understand. The Giants want him back, but
Right.
no. And don't forget, speaking of that, there are a lot of former Eagle executives and coaches out there. Not that the Eagles would overspend and keep Seumalo, because Isaac is going to get a big deal in free agency. He's going to get, as I've said, for sometimes you don't quite know how good a player is until you talk to other teams. It sounds like
Yes.
he's going to. I mean, this one coach we ran into, he goes, "Are you kidding?" He goes, "We can't afford him." He goes, "Our GM said we can't afford him." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "But this guy coaches the AFC goes, we can't afford him, but man, I'd love to have him because he goes, I don't want to knock any of our other players, but he might be our best lineman if we sign him." I'm like, "Wow, you think he's that good? He's never been a Pro Bowl." He goes, "No, but he's a really good player. The tape's really good." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And just what the O-line coach who's told you that, he's so athletic he could play tackle. Do I think Isaac Seumalo will ever play tackle in the NFL? Not intentionally. You never know if a bunch of injuries, but that really illustrates how teams see him and how good and option and flexible he can be. I mean, at the end of the day, I wouldn't be surprised if he signed a deal to play center. We'll see, because he can and was projected
Sure.
to be. But either way, he's going to make good money. You're right. This is going to be
And
like they lost Big Fee to a big deal, but I
just going to
think this
bring that
one's
up.
going to even be a bigger deal.
Well, think about Big V. Okay, I want to bring this up. Now he has positional versatility, left tackle and guard. He's playing guard now, but they signed him to play right tackle. When you look at the deal Big V got, it's one of these. Vitai's getting this type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean he signed a 5-year deal for $9 million a year, with upside up to 10. It was a shocker. I mean, he's in fact, I think, is he 30 yet? He's slightly older than Seumalo, not maybe a couple months. But that was in March of 2020. 5 years, 5-year deal, $9 million a year, upside to 10. Isaac will blow that out of the water. We don't. I don't want to throw numbers out there yet. We don't know exactly. I don't think he's going to get Joe Tooney's deal, who's one of the best guards in the league. I'm going to put Isaac up there. But free agency, Christian Kirk got 18 a year. Not even close to the best slot receiver in the league. He's a good player though. But you get out there to free agency, and it's definitely a seller's market with this kid. That means if you're the player, you've got great leverage, and there should be a lot of teams,
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so those are the offensive guys. Not that much. Now, defense we know is a huge deal with Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave and the secondary and the linebacker. I mean, you got a free agent pretty much everywhere to get into. So let's start with Bradberry. This is a guy who, we've talked to a couple of different people here, got some good sourcing. I mean, he's going to have a market. There's going to be we know this. It shouldn't be obvious. There'll be some teams aggressively pursuing him. And what I would say though is that, Howie mentioned like there are going to be guys we don't give offers to because we don't want to be insulting. We know we can't keep everybody. We're not going to do that. I think, the feedback we got with Bradberry is that, they want to be informed. They want to know what the best deal is. They want to know that they want people to come back to them and say, this is what we got. What can you do? So, I mean, it sounds like the Eagles would like to keep Bradberry, but that's sort of a Captain Obvious statement. The question is, what will the market end up being? And if you have more than a few teams involved, then usually the market goes up.
I would say on that, I would liken it to Jordan Hicks. Is that the Eagles had interest in bringing him back as soon as they found out what he wanted and said, "Okay, thank you, bye." They never made him an offer.
Right.
I just feel like Bradberry's going to get way more than the Eagles want to pay. But man, I don't know what the hell they're going to do if he walks, which is likely. I guess the draft. They have 2 first-round picks right now, so it's a problem. I mean, the GM was talking about that last week. There's going to be change, particularly on defense. You're going to get some comp picks. You get great comp picks when guys sign monster deals.
Yeah, and I would definitely watch for some of the teams that you would expect to go after a corner or familiar. Arizona, I would keep my eye out for Arizona Cardinals because of the Gannon familiarity there. They're probably going to make a bunch of moves anyway and free up some money just because they're starting up over a new culture there.
Did you mention Minnesota last show?
I did. I've heard about Minnesota being aggressive in the secondary.
Yeah.
So, you know, we watched them last year. They played Ed Donatell, what they were calling him Ed Donatell, right? I mean, they were playing all these like shell coverages to protect their corners. They had Patrick Peterson, who didn't have a bad year, by the way, but either way, they were just protecting their corner. I think they want to compete a little bit more in the secondary. So I would look for them to do that.
Okay, it wouldn't shock me at all for Bradberry, because I'm looking right now. The guys are on the contract. Cam Dantzler has been benched before, tall corner, doesn't run all that well, but tough guy. Andrew Booth, who came in hurt, and he barely played last season. He was the second round at Clemson. That's really all they have. We're ready to come in and compete. So yeah, that they need a veteran. Would shock me on that one.
I would also watch out for the Lions, because they've really tried to get their secondary in order, you know, with Okuda, and they're losing.
Oh yeah,
the Penn State kid who's bench for them, Awaria. Yeah, so they're like one of those teams that they strike it big, like the Eagles last year on a few free agents, and they really can make a big difference.
That's a great one. I like that more in Minnesota. Same division, no, because they are a couple. They're like 3 impact defensive players away from being, I don't want to say elite team, but like big time. I think you said earlier, top 3 team. I could see that. They just need corners. I mean, Okuda's up and down. He's better than he had been. Remember, he's coming up with torn Achilles. Jerry Jacobs. I know Cosell likes him. He's a scrappy guy. He's a 2021 undrafted free agent out of Arkansas, but I know he's come back from a torn ACL. Did a good job coming back from it. But they need upgrades. So that would make a lot of sense. And I know they have more cap space to spend.
All right. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's move on to Javon Hargrave, Adam. I had an interesting conversation with, and this is just one executive's opinion, so you never know. But he felt that Hargrave, and maybe this is how his team had it valued, Adam, was at a 13 to 15 million a year type of contract, which is a little under what I thought Javon Hargrave might make on a free agent market. I mean, the Eagles signed him for a 13 million a year deal 3 years ago, and he wasn't nearly as accomplished then as he is now. So if it's 13 to 14, like that's almost doable for the Eagles, I would think, if they want to bring him back, because it's not that much of a pay raise. It's not, you know, like it seems like it's not like the market blew up. If it's 15 or higher, then the market probably blew up, and I don't know if Eagles can do it.
I would expect it to be I would expect the bottom for Rosenhaus, who's Drew Rosenhaus, is going to negotiate the one. I'd be shocked if it's less than 15.
Yeah, I would too.
3 years at 39 million. First 2 years fully guaranteed. I can't. I know he's 30 now, but he's a free agent coming off the Super Bowl team. He's a pass rusher, D tackle. Those guys are really hard to find. He's got real issues against the run. He's a smaller guy. He's had some injuries. I give him credit for fighting through that stuff, but it's free agency, man. It's funny money. Guys get overpaid. Good player though. It's very productive, but I've taken plays off is not fair, but he just has some times he just doesn't show up for whatever reason. Starting with that the Lions game. If you remember week 1. But productive player. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And again, like, do you think like there's an intertwinement here between him and Cox? Like we've said all along, you're not going to keep both.
Right.
You might be able to keep one. And it seems like if you lose one, you have a better shot at keeping the other.
See, on that, Jordan Davis has to play a lot. We know that. But man, he's just not there yet. He in terms of trusting him to give you 50% play time and kick butt, he hasn't shown it yet. So
Good point. There's one point I wanted to make on that, by the way. I'm sorry, but I forgot to make this. Okay. Sean Desai just got here. He might have, this is what, someone put to me. He might have sort of like specific wants, like most defensive coordinators do, for what they want up front. So Jonathan Gannon played a nose, right? Whether it was Linval or whether it was Jordan Davis, and he played Fletcher Cox in a 4-eye because he felt Fletcher could do it. Same thing with Hargrave, a 3-4-eye, move him around. But Sean Desai may want a different type. He may not want a 3 technique. So I don't know if that changes. Good defense coordinators usually adjust to their personnel. And if Howie says we need to have this guy, we're going to have this guy, I'm sure Sean will figure it out. but I'm sure Desai's input will also go into this, and that might matter in determining the futures for guys like Hargrave and Cox, especially if the money's big.
Sure. They need a veteran. They really need someone who's proven. Cox wasn't bad last season. He's okay. Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure did something left in the tank.
Not sure he was a $14 million a year player, but he was certainly a good player. Yeah.
He wasn't. That weird re-signing. Well, I'll give Cox credit in this area. He really wanted to be back. Like, he loves wherever he lives. He just likes being an Eagle.
Mm-hmm.
And it is rare for players to say, especially last like and they love Doug and they seem to love Nick. Players are we don't have time to do this. The NFLPA thing, their report card came out. Other than two minor knocks, I mean, it was almost a perfect report card, but the two knocks they dragged their grade down, but spoke highly of Sirianni being a good, very well liked by the players. And overall, you know how many former Eagles live in the area. They're treated pretty well.
Yeah. So that segues nicely though into our next guy. We're going to finish it off with TJ Edwards.
Yeah.
We know through our sourcing that there's a market for him. There's going to be 3 or 4 teams not named the Eagles that are interested in him. The one thing that we've learned is that TJ Edwards likes being an Eagle. He likes Philadelphia, and he'd prefer to be an Eagle, but obviously that's all. It's the ideal scenario. The question is, what's the others' offers compared to the Eagles' offer, and where he's going to lean. So, I mean, a lot of people want to be where they are. You know what they say? They always say, be where your feet are, right? But then your feet are somewhere else is when the contract gets a lot bigger. So that's going to have to be the decision. It sounds like that's going to have to be the decision for TJ Edwards, that he'll have offers, and, if he wants to be an Eagle, it'll be like, how badly do you want to be an Eagle?
Yeah. And I can't wait to see if these guys leave, what their connection to the staff is. Is it the front office? Is it the coaches? Because there's a lot of that going around, and not only with the Eagles. I was talking to some coaches from other teams who, they want some of their players, they coach somewhere else. And, this just goes on. It's just, they bring guys in. Look at with Sirianni and Zach Pascal. This is exactly what happens, and you get it. Now, Edwards is a good football player. What a I don't know about him going to the Cleveland with Jim Schwartz, but I'm sure Jim Schwartz, if he looks at Edwards' tape, he looks a lot different than when he coached him, because he's been, I don't want to say elite, but he's taken a major jump in the last 2 years. He was not the player he was under Schwartz. It's funny how things, not blaming Jim at all, just the guy, 3rd year, 4th year, got better.
Right. So, is he the top linebacker
inside?
He's going to be one of the top linebackers on the market, right?
Top ILB, inside, 34 inside linebacker, or 43 middle linebacker. Clear Evans it's not even close. He's going to get a monster deal.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's going to get like last year. Foye Oluokun.
Yeah, he
got about 15 million a year. I'm not sure just from my feelers out there, he may get close to that, but I don't know if he's going to get 15 a year.
You don't think Edmonds will, huh? Okay.
Edwards, right?
I mean, no, I'm talking about Edmonds. I'm sorry, Tremaine Edmonds.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I thought we were rounding up on TJ Edwards.
No, you asked who the top guys are.
Right.
Edmonds is by far the best inside linebacker for agency.
Yes, he might get that kind of. I would think he'll get that. Yeah.
Oh, no, Edwards won't. No, hell no.
No, TJ would probably get. You know what? Someone gave me a good comp. Oh, Devondre Campbell from the Packers got 10 a year. From.
Wasn't that? Did Jordan Hicks get, I gotta look, did he get 10 million? He got a crazy contract. I was shocked with the Cardinals.
With the who? Oh, with the Cardinals way back
Jordan
when?
Hicks.
I'd have to go back and look at the contract history there. I just know that Campbell last year signed with the with the Packers. He signed for about 10 a year, and someone told me that that's kind of what to look for, in that neighborhood.
Jordan Hicks got still a lot of money, $8.5 million. Okay, back in March of 2019, 4 years ago, Jordan Hicks with his injuries got $8.5 million.
Right. So think about the Eagles' history here, right? They didn't pay Jordan Hicks 8.5. They pseudo paid Nigel Bradham for a year, something that would have been 8 if he hit inside. It was reported as 8, but as we remember, it wasn't really 8, right? And it was really only for a year anyway, because he was a little bit older. So I think you're looking at TJ Edwards and saying he's probably closer to the 10-11 mark if that's what Campbell got.
I'll tell you what, he
yeah.
is not a liability in pass coverage. I know he's not perfect. He had a couple plays in the playoffs. He could have been better, but Campbell got, for the record, last March, 5 years, $50 million, but only $15 million fully guaranteed. Only he was all in the signing bonus.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was it was a team-friendly structure, really good APY at $15 million, because he kind of dropped off with the Falcons, and then he revived his career in a big way. He was terrific
Mm-hmm.
for the Packers. He kind of picked it up, but the structure is very club-friendly. So
Yeah.
that's not a bad comp. Although Campbell's different. He's bigger, much bigger physically.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, look, if TJ mixes the market, maybe he gets 10. Good. I hope he does. And I believe he also got married.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we know is the Eagles will go up to around 8, at least they have in the past, and then he might make around 10 or 11. So the question is, would TJ come back to the Eagles at the lower number? We'll see.
8? What do you Eagles offer me? Okay, I don't know that.
No, I didn't say that. I'm saying that's what the Eagles would not offer.
Oh, Hicks, 8.5.
Hicks,
Yeah,
but they wanted it. That was too much, but they did offer Bradham a little, so maybe even not 8. So that's why when you start to look at this scenario, it feels like if TJ gets like 11, 10, 11, it's going to probably be a pretty big gap from historically what the Eagles would be willing to offer.
Exactly, because Hicks had the coverage ability.
Yeah.
Also could blitz. And TJ is not a bad blitzer, but he's not that kind of impact player. Yeah. Well, we know Dean has to start. We don't Kaiser White. We've not heard anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be slightly surprised if he resigned. You mentioned Bradberry, Hargrave.
CJ Gardner-Johnson, obviously. Yeah. That's, we know that there's, he's going to be another one who's coveted, but the Eagles, as you've mentioned, they have the ability to use the tag if they want to keep him in house.
All I said 2 weeks ago is that if they felt they needed to do it, they would do it.
Right.
To keep them. And I think
people sort of jumped on that like it was like a sure shot or their plan. That's not what you were saying.
That's not the way they do it. They're a team. They'd only use the tag when they think it's not going well and they don't want to take any risk. If you go back in history, they just, other than Dawkins, we know, that was many years ago, and we know why that happened. Mistake. Well, certainly the way they handled it. And B-Doc, he obviously revived his career with the Broncos in a big way, but they just don't let guys in the prime of their career go. There would have to be something for them to walk away from him, from Gardner-Johnson. It would have nothing to do with football. It would have to be something. Again, we haven't heard they're even thinking about that, but for them to walk away a guy that might be their best defensive player, certainly one of their top defensive players, one of the best players on the team, they would have to be, something would have had to happen. And by the way, Dennard Wilson, the reason why you didn't hear reports during the season of him acting up like he sort of did, like he would drive his teammates crazy. Just too much. He was just too over the energy is great, but smack talk and all that stuff. We didn't hear that it was a problem here with the players as much. Now, I can't speak to the coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea, but I just know he's a stud player. You heard Cosell on our last show, where it was just, I don't want to say foam at the mouth, but folks who watch Greg, they know there's no gray area. When Greg likes a player, you know it. When he doesn't, you know it. And Greg talked about, not that he's Ed Reed, but he talked about what he does is Ed Reed like, and that's all you need to know.
Yeah. Well, I know the team wasn't thrilled with the Gannon tweet that he had that he deleted because, the Eagles really love Jonathan Gannon. And I think I said this in the last pod. It was sort of surprising just going around talking to people around the league how well respected and liked Jonathan Gannon is. It's true. It's real. So I don't think and the Eagles obviously wanted him back. So I don't think they loved the fact that one of their players was slamming Jonathan Gannon on the way out. But, he deleted it. It is what it is. Yeah. But I just want to, it felt like shades of the CJ Gardner-Johnson from New Orleans that got him out of there,
I mean, look, that's not good when you're trying to get a free agent contract done.
Yeah.
To keep one of your best players, but no, and then we have no idea how the Dennard Wilson departure will impact not only on Gardner-Johnson coming back and how, because we know that he really did a good job of reining him in. We have no idea how it would impact Bradberry coming back. We don't know how he feels about it. App spot. We haven't heard anything about Epps yet. It's still too early. Yeah. But any of these guys, I mean, this Dennard Wilson, man, we'll see. We'll see
All
who
right.
they get, whether that guy is a guy who could do an adequate job of replacing him.
We will see. We'll have more Thursday morning. Again, Greg Cosell, Wednesday morning. That'll be out. And then we'll empty the notebook on the following Sunday as we get real close to free agency and the new league year. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Big thanks to you guys, all you great listeners, for flying with us inside the Birds.